I left work early that day, practically sprinting out of the office while the others were still trading Secret Santa gifts and laughing over catered steak and company wine. I skipped the end-of-year bonus dinner, something people wait all year for, and tossed everything into a duffel bag like I was running from something. I wasn't. I was running to something. Christmas. Home. It had been a year since I last saw my family in person. We'd done the video calls, the birthday emojis, the miss you too texts, but this year, I wanted to be there. I wanted to walk through the front door and smell cinnamon candles and burnt cookies. I wanted to sit at the table, not in a digital window. I wanted to belong again. So I booked a one-way flight. $540. Not cheap, especially last minute, but I didn't think twice. Because family mattered. Because I still believed showing up counted for something. The flight was bumpy. The airport was chaos. My rental car smelled like gym socks. None of it mattered. I was going home. I imagined the roasted ham. The way Mom always claimed she wouldn't burn the cookies and always did. I imagined Dad acting tough but choking up during the midnight prayer. I imagined Brian cracking some dumb joke and everyone groaning. I imagined my chair, second from the end, near the window, slightly wobbly, always mine. When I finally pulled into the driveway, snow clung to my boots and my coat. The lights were already glowing in the windows, casting that familiar warmth. I could hear faint music inside, Bing Crosby. Maybe, and my chest tightened. I was nervous, excited, hopeful. That should have been my first red flag. I stepped up to the door, holding a damp gift bag in one hand, inside, Dad's favorite whiskey, and rang the bell with the other. No one opened it right away. I let myself in, brushing snow off my shoulders as I stepped into the hallway. No one rushed to hug me. No, there he is. Just a glance from my sister, who barely looked up from her phone. You made it, she said flatly, like I'd just returned from the grocery store instead of flying across the country. I offered a half smile. Yeah, Merry Christmas. The house smelled right, sounded right, looked right, but something felt off. I walked toward the dining room, gift bag still in hand, and that's when I saw it. A post-it, pink, crooked, stuck to the back of a dining chair, reserved for Brian's fiancée. At first, I didn't get it. My brain stuttered. I squinted. Maybe it was a joke, some silly holiday prank. Then I saw the handwriting, Mom's. My eyes scanned the table. Every seat was accounted for. There was no space left. No plate for me. No name tag. No cushion waiting at the end. Just that little note claiming my chair. I stood there frozen, snow still melting in my hair. My fingers clenched the handles of the gift bag. Mom stepped out from the kitchen, smiling like nothing was wrong. Oh, you're here, she said cheerfully, like I'd popped in from around the block. I nodded. Barely. She's new, Mom added, motioning toward the chair with the post-it. We figured you'd be fine standing. Standing. Like a waiter. Like someone not part of the table. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. All that came out was, sure. It wasn't anger that hit me first. It was something quieter, sadder, heavier. The realization that I didn't belong, not even enough to warrant a chair at the table I helped keep afloat all these years. I looked at Mom, at the table, at the strangers now occupying space I used to think was mine. Then I turned around. No yelling, no dramatic exit. I just picked up my bag, nodded once, and walked out the door. The cold hit harder this time. I didn't even bother brushing the snow off before sliding into the car. I sat there for a minute, staring at the steering wheel, before I drove away with nowhere to go. I didn't make it far, maybe a mile down the road, when my phone buzzed. So sensitive. It wasn't a big deal. My sister. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the reply button. But I didn't type anything. Because what could I say? That I gave up my year-end bonus dinner? That I paid $540 to fly home? That I brought a gift and hope and memories, only to be told to stand? It was a big deal. Not because of the chair. Because of what the chair represented. That post-it was more than a name tag. It was a neon sign that said, "You're not part of this anymore." I pulled into a gas station and parked. Let the heater blast until my ears burned. Stared out at the snow stacking on the windshield. I should have gone back to the hotel. But I couldn't move. I just sat there, letting it all sink in. And that's when it hit me, harder than anything. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been replaced. I didn't go back to the hotel. Instead, I parked in front of a rundown gas station, let the engine idle, and stared out at the snow as it piled across my windshield. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't feel anything except cold and disbelief. The heater roared, trying its best, but it couldn't thaw what had settled inside me. That pink post-it note kept flashing in my head like it was neon. Reserved for Brian's fiancée. 5 words. Nothing cruel. No slur. No screaming. Just placement. Quiet. Simple. Devastating. That was my seat. Always had been. They didn't even ask if I'd be home. I pulled out my phone, checked the time, 9:03 p.m., and opened my banking app. I stared at the familiar numbers. The automatic transfers scheduled for every month. Electric bill, car insurance, health coverage, trust fund contributions. Most of them weren't even labeled clearly anymore. I knew them by heart. Quiet responsibilities I'd taken on. Never questioned, never tracked. My thumb hovered. Then I did it. Pause, 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 cancel. A few taps. And just like that, years of silent giving stopped. I sat back, watching the snow blur the world outside. And for the first time, a sharp, unfamiliar question hit me. What was I to them? Not in a bitter way. Not yet. Just honest. Was I the son? The brother? Or just the guy who paid the bills? And once that question landed, the avalanche started. I remembered when I got my first job in tech. Dad shook my hand, clapped me on the back, and said, "Now you can finally take care of the family." He meant it. He said it with pride. Not as a joke. It wasn't congratulations, it was assignment. And I did. Quietly. At first, Mom's phone bill, Brian's rent for a few months, Dad's car repairs, groceries, then insurance, then more. When Mom needed emergency dental surgery last year and her insurance wouldn't cover $3,400, I wired the money without hesitation. When Dad's Ford finally died and he needed a reliable ride to church, I co-signed a lease. When Brian was spiraling after another failed business idea, I covered his therapy sessions. He said he needed space to find his focus. I figured he needed a break. I gave him one. And through it all, I told myself this was what good sons did. Good brothers. Good men. We help. We provide. We don't make a big deal about it. But I never got a thank you that wasn't followed by a request. Never got a "we appreciate you" that didn't end with "so. Quick favor." I'd been living like their financial first responder. Always on call. Always ready. And tonight? Tonight they didn't even save me a seat. I picked up my phone again. Scrolled through our family group chat. It had become background noise over the years. Birthday pics, prayer chains, pet updates. I found the post from October when I got promoted, senior systems architect. Huge title. Massive leap. Mom replied, "Wow, that's great." 1 heart emoji from my sister. Nothing from Brian. 2 weeks later, Brian's girlfriend posted photos of her cookies. Literally just cookies. 27 comments. OMG. These look amazing. Such a keeper. Brian, don't let this one go. That word again, keeper. For what? Flour and sugar? I read through those comments, feeling something ugly and unfamiliar rise in my chest. Not jealousy. Not exactly. More like disorientation. Like realizing you've been standing in the wrong line your entire life. It kept snowballing. I remembered last summer. I flew in, unannounced, to surprise Mom for her birthday. Got in at midnight. Slept on the couch because Brian had temporarily taken my old room. Woke up to an empty house. They'd gone wine tasting with Brian's girlfriend. No one told me. There was a sticky note on the fridge. Be back by 5. Make yourself comfortable. No cake, no hug, just quiet expectation that I'd still be there. Still smiling. Still paying the next month's gas bill. Which I did. That's when I realized something brutal. I wasn't being forgotten. I was being used. And not maliciously. That was the worst part. It wasn't evil. It was normal, routine, casual. I wasn't the dependable one. I was the disposable one. The utility. The ATM. They didn't see me because they never had to. Brian failed upward and they cheered. I succeeded silently and they shrugged. And every time I gave more, they asked for more. Every time I gave less, I was called distant or so sensitive. That text from my sister earlier? So sensitive. It wasn't a big deal. That was their response to everything. Every boundary, every need, every moment I dared to act like a human being instead of a bank account. And still, I kept showing up. Until now. Because sitting there, in the driver's seat of a rented car in a gas station parking lot. Thai food getting cold in the passenger seat and Christmas lights twinkling on someone else's porch across the street. I finally asked myself, what if I just stopped? What if I stopped making excuses for them? What if I stopped bleeding money and energy into a family that couldn't even give me a chair? What if I lived for myself? It was a terrifying thought. And the most freeing one I'd ever had. Sunday came with gray skies and the kind of silence that presses against your chest. I sat in my car outside the house I grew up in, watching the lights glow through the curtains. It looked warm in there. Familiar. But I knew better now. I knew what that glow hid. The quiet expectation that I would forgive. Forget. And keep paying. Not tonight. I wasn't here to eat. I wasn't here to play nice. I was here to finish it. I knocked once, habit, and let myself in. The house smelled like pot roast and cinnamon candles. Mom was in the kitchen. Apron on. Smile already plastered across her face like nothing had ever happened. You came, she said, voice sweet, hopeful. Yeah, I said, I'm not here to eat. Her smile flickered. Well, dinner's almost ready. I won't be staying long. She blinked, unsure of what to do with that. Dad sat in the recliner, holding his reading glasses like he'd been caught pretending to read. Brian and his new wife were on the couch. She wouldn't look at me. Good. Maybe she finally realized what she was part of. I stood in the center of the room. No gifts. No apologies. No more pretending. I'm here because there are things I need to say. I began, and you're going to hear them. Sweetheart, Mom started, but I held up a hand. No, not this time. You don't get to soften this with sweetheart and pot roast. You lost that privilege on Christmas Eve. It was just a chair, she said, instantly defensive. I let out a bitter laugh. It was never about the chair. It was about everything that came before it, and everything that chair represented. Brian rolled his eyes. Here we go. I turned to him. Just don't speak. He sat back, folding his arms like a kid caught lying. I looked at Dad. You watched me bust my ass for years, helping you all without a single complaint. I covered bills, health insurance, cars, therapy, hell, even rent for Brian's failed ski startup, and you still looked surprised when I stood up for myself. We never asked you to do any of that, Dad said. No, I said. You didn't. You expected it, because I never said no. Because I made it easy. Mom stepped forward. We didn't mean to hurt you. And that's the problem, I said. You didn't mean anything at all. You never stopped to ask if I was okay. If I could afford it. If I was tired. You just assumed I'd be there to catch whatever you dropped. Brian scoffed. You're acting like a victim. You were always the one with the good job. No kids. Extra money. You could handle it. Handle it? I repeated. I ate ramen 3 nights a week so you could plan a vineyard wedding. I paid for therapy sessions so you could find yourself while I was losing mine. And you want to talk about handling it? No one spoke. I pulled an envelope from my jacket and dropped it on the coffee table. What's that? Dad asked. Your tax documents. I won't be doing them this year. Hire someone else. Mom's face turned pale. Wait, what? I've removed myself from every shared account. I continued. The car lease is back in your name. Insurance coverage ends in 60 days. Utilities. Phone. The trust fund. Done. All of it. You're serious? Dad said quietly. I nodded. Dead serious. I looked at Brian. And that wedding fund you texted me about? Use it for chairs. Because I'm not coming. He looked stunned for the first time all night. You'd really turn your back on your family? He asked. I stepped closer. No. I'm turning my back on a system that only works if I stay small and silent. Mom's lip trembled. We didn't think you felt this way. You never thought about how I felt at all. I said. That's the whole point. The room went quiet. I took one last look around. Same house. Same people. Same expectations. But I wasn't the same. I'm done being the one who sacrifices everything just so no one else has to grow up. I said. Steady and firm. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. And then I walked out. No one followed. They didn't beg. They didn't stop me. Because this time, they knew they couldn't. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The morning after that Sunday dinner, I woke up in my own bed. Sunlight spilling through the window. No buzzing phone. No missed calls. No hey, quick favor texts. Just silence. And for the first time in years, It didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like peace. I made coffee, real coffee. Not instant, and actually sat down to drink it while it was still hot. I didn't rush, didn't multitask, didn't check my bank account to see what had disappeared overnight. I just existed. And it was enough. I opened my laptop, not to check family spreadsheets or track due dates for their bills, but to book something for myself, a photography retreat in Oregon. 2 weeks. Forests, waterfalls, no Wi-Fi, no expectations. I'd saved the link 3 years ago and never dared click confirm. Always something in the way, someone's emergency, someone's rent, someone's broken car or overdue credit card. Not this time. Book, paid, done. That retreat was the first thing I did purely for me. And it changed everything. I hiked for hours each day. Camera slung over my shoulder. Legs sore. Lungs burning. I saw things that had nothing to do with screens or schedules. Sunlight dancing through moss. Fog curling around pine trees like smoke. Nobody needed anything from me there. Nobody called me the reliable one. Nobody asked me to be anything but present. One afternoon, while I was editing photos by the fireplace, one of the instructors sat beside me. "You've got a good eye," she said. "Thanks," I replied, almost shy. She nodded, sipping tea. Most people don't notice what they're missing until they slow down enough to actually look. She wasn't talking about the photos. Back home, things kept shifting. I canceled the shared Hulu, unsubscribed from the family Netflix, shut down the group chat. My sister tried adding me back in. I hit leave again without hesitation. A coworker, someone I barely knew, asked me out for a drink after work. I said yes, not because I was trying to distract myself, but because I was finally open to new energy, new people, new joy. That night, sitting on the patio of a quiet bar, he asked, "So, what's your family like?" I laughed into my glass. "Complicated, but I'm learning that doesn't have to mean forever." He raised his drink. "To unlearning. To freedom," I said. Then came the inevitable last call, figuratively and literally. At exactly 9:04 p.m., 2 weeks after the Christmas disaster. My phone rang. Blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hey, it's Dad." His voice was different, tired, older. "I'm at the hospital," he said. "Your mom collapsed in the kitchen. Nothing fatal. Stress. Dehydration. She's been asking for you." I didn't say anything. "You made your point," he added, loud and clear. "Maybe now you can stop punishing us." I almost laughed. Punishment? No. This wasn't revenge. It was release. "You think I'm punishing you because I stopped funding your life?" I asked. "She's your mother. She's the one who let me walk out of Christmas dinner like a ghost." I said. "Don't use her tears now as a guilt weapon." Silence. "She told me about the chair," he said. "Said she thought Brian's fiancé would feel awkward. Said she didn't think you'd care." "Of course she didn't," I whispered, because I was never allowed to care. Not without being called dramatic. Another pause. "I miss you, son." I swallowed. Not pain, not regret, just clarity. I miss the version of me who kept showing up. Too, I said, "but he's gone." And I hung up. Days passed. Then a message from her, Brian's wife. "Hey, I didn't know you were coming. Your mom said you'd be late and not staying long. I didn't mean to take your chair. I'm sorry." Then the kicker. "Brian told me you were rich. Said you didn't care about family stuff. Said you'd be fine standing." He knew. He knew what it would do. He wanted it. Because I reminded him of everything he couldn't be: accountable, stable, responsible. He was the chaos they coddled. I was the structure they drained. Not anymore. By March, the calls stopped. By April, I was off every shared account. By May, I booked a solo trip to Barcelona. I wandered cobblestone alleys, phone in airplane mode, ate tapas at midnight, watched the sun sink over the rooftops in silence. Nobody needed me. Nobody expected anything. I wasn't anybody's safety net. One night, at a rooftop bar, a woman asked if she could share my table. She had wild curls and a voice like ocean waves. We talked for hours: books, cities, art, disappointments. "Where are you from?" she asked. I smiled. "Used to be a family man," I said. "Now I'm just a man." She clinked her glass to mine. "Sounds like freedom." It was. And when I came home, that feeling didn't fade. I got promoted, led projects, mentored younger developers. People listened when I spoke. Not because I sacrificed for them, but because they respected me. I furnished my apartment exactly how I wanted. Bright walls, no shadows, no reminders of everything I used to fund. Then, in June, a thick cream envelope arrived. Brian's wedding invitation. Vineyard, rustic theme, July 16th. I left it on the kitchen counter for a week. Next to it, a note in her handwriting. I hope you'll come. He still doesn't understand what he did. But maybe he needs to see you stand your ground in person. I tossed it in the trash. On July 16th, I rode a beach cruiser along the cliffs in Santa Cruz. The wind in my hair. Salt on my skin. Later that night, a single message from Mom. He kept looking at the door all night like he was waiting for you. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Because I was free.